Long before the first gray rays of dawn pierce the thick green canopy of the Patane rainforest, the humid jungle surrounding the great city of Tikal hums with life. The year is 750 after Christ. High above the mist-shrouded treetops, the towering limestone crests of colossal pyramid temples catch the initial golden light of the sun, glowing in brilliant coats of crimson paint. Inside the Central Acropolis, a sprawling palace complex of elevated stone courts and shaded porticos, the air is heavy with sensory contrast. Smoldering copal resin incense mingles with crushed chili peppers, freshly ground maize dough, wet lime plaster, and damp tropical earth. Deep within the residential quarters, servants move silently across polished stucco floors, lighting pine torch braziers while high nobles prepare for another day of hallowed ritual, political diplomacy, and royal audience. In this year, Tikal stands at the absolute zenith of classic Maya civilization, a bustling metropolis of over 70,000 souls. Yet within a century and a half, these magnificent stone halls will be completely abandoned, surrendered to the creeping vines and roots of the rainforest for more than 1,000 years. This reconstruction of daily life inside a Mayan palace in Tikal in the year 750 AD was created with artificial intelligence based on historical studies, epigraphic decipherments, and archaeological excavations of the Guatemalan lowlands. If you enjoy traveling through time to see the lost worlds of our past brought back to life, please take a moment to subscribe to the History Forge and turn on notifications so as not to miss the journey still to come. To understand what life was like inside the royal precinct of Tikal in 750 AD, it is necessary first to picture the immense urban landscape and water engineering that made this jungle civilization possible. Known to its ancient inhabitants as Yax Mutal, Tikal sat at the heart of a powerful kingdom that had dominated the Maya lowlands for centuries. In 750 AD, the city was ruled by the formidable divine King Yik'in Chan K'awiil, who had expanded Tikal's power through military victories over rival cities like Calakmul and Naranjo. The city covered over 6 square miles of dense urban settlement, connected by massive raised limestone causeways known as sakbyab, paved white roads that allowed thousands of traders, pilgrims, and soldiers to move above the muddy forest floor. Because Tikal possessed no major rivers, survival depended entirely on human engineering. Surrounding the ceremonial core were giant plaster-lined reservoirs, called aguadas, engineered to catch and store millions of gallons of seasonal rainwater during the torrential tropical wet season to sustain the massive population through months of scorching drought. Constructed from quarried limestone blocks, the royal palace complex, the Central Acropolis, was a masterpiece of stone masonry designed to isolate the royal court from the tropical heat while projecting divine majesty. The palace was not a single building, but a multi-level complex of 42 two-story stone structures arranged around 6 open courtyards. Walls were held together with lime mortar and finished with a thick coat of smooth stucco plaster. To protect the interiors from tropical downpours and structural collapse, Maya architects utilized the corbeled vault. In this technique, horizontal stone courses stepped inward until meeting at a single capstone, creating narrow, high-ceilinged chambers with thick stone walls that kept the rooms remarkably cool during the humid heat of the day. The outer facades were painted in brilliant shades of cinnabar red, blue, and yellow, adorned with elaborate carved stucco masks depicting rain gods, jaguar spirits, and ancestral deities staring down into the courtyards below. Inside the residential suites of the palace, the living spaces were elegant, minimalist, and functionally adapted to the tropical climate. Because glass was unknown and wooden doors were rare, doorways were left wide open to catch jungle breezes, screened only by heavy woven cotton drapes dyed in vibrant geometric patterns of indigo and cochineal. Light entered through these doorways, and small high-set ventilation slits cut into the thick limestone walls. The floors were made of polished lime plaster, painted dark red or cream, swept clean constantly by servants using palm frond brooms. The central feature of every residential room was a wide raised stone bench built directly into the masonry. Covered with thick cotton mattresses, woven reed mats called pop, and soft jaguar pelts, these stone benches served a dual purpose. During the day, they functioned as thrones and seating platforms for receiving visitors, and at night, they transformed into sleeping quarters for the royal family. Sanitation was maintained through stone drainage channels carved into the court floors that funneled waste away into settling basins, while personal washing was conducted using clay basins filled with water scented with crushed wild flowers. Governed by an unyielding spiritual and social hierarchy, the society gathered within the palace precincts of Tikal was centered on divine kingship. At the supreme peak stood the king, titled the K'awiil Ajo, or Holy Lord. He was not merely a political ruler, but the living conduit between the human world, the underworld of Xibalba, and the celestial heavens. Immediately below the king were the royal family, high priests, war captains, and senior courtyard lords known as Sajjalab. Next came an influential class of royal scribes, master architects, stone carvers, and jade artisans, whose literacy and craftsmanship sustained the court's prestige. Beneath the nobility labored thousands of commoners, maize farmers who worked raised agricultural fields in surrounding swamps, stone quarrymen, firewood collectors, pottery makers, and war captives who served as domestic slaves. Women of the Maya royal court held significant political and religious influence. Royal princesses were married off to subsidiary lords across neighboring cities to forge military alliances, while high queens managed domestic palace economies, oversaw complex textile workshops, and participated directly in sacred rituals. Noblewomen were responsible for the delicate art of backstrap weaving, producing fine cotton garments embroidered with complex glyphs and geometric motifs. Royal women also engaged in sacred bloodletting rituals during major astronomical alignment events, using stingray spines and obsidian blades to draw blood from their tongues and woven cords onto bark paper, burning the soaked paper in incense braziers to summon visions of ancestral serpent spirits to guide the realm. Nourishing the royal court, the culinary diet enjoyed within the palace of Tikal was rich, varied, and deeply tied to the sacred agriculture of the Maya world, centered on the holy triad of maize, beans, and squash. The day opened with the preparation of fresh maize dough, known as masa, ground by women using stone hand grinders called metates on granite slab tables. From this dough, cooks prepared soft tamales steamed in corn husks, stuffed with turkey meat, chili peppers, squash seeds, and wild herbs. Maize was also consumed as a thick, warm porridge called adol, flavored with wild honey, vanilla pods, and allspice. Beyond staples, the royal kitchens roasted wild game hunted in the surrounding rainforests. White-tailed deer, collared peccary, ocellated turkeys, agoutis, and armadillos, served with rich sauces seasoned with achiote, wild onions, garlic chives, and hot habanero-style peppers. Freshwater fish, snook, and turtles were hauled up from coastal estuaries and inland rivers by trade caravans, packed in wet leaves. But the supreme delicacy of the Maya court, reserved strictly for the nobility and ritual consumption, was cacao, the chocolate beverage. Cacao beans were roasted, ground into a dark paste, mixed with water, chili, maize flour, and wild honey, and then poured back and forth between tall ceramic vases from a height until a thick, frothy foam formed on top. Drunk cold from beautifully painted cylinder vessels inscribed with the owner's name and titles. This bitter, spicy chocolate drink was considered the literal blood of the gods. Striking and distinctive, the physical appearance, grooming, and clothing of the Tikal aristocracy were designed to immediately distinguish the nobility from commoners through artificial body modification and luxurious regalia. From infancy, royal children underwent cranial modification. Boards were strapped to the head of a newborn baby to gently elongate the skull upward and backward, creating a high, sloping forehead that mimicked the shape of an ear of sacred maize. Cross eyes were also considered a mark of beauty, achieved by dangling a small resin bead in front of an infant's nose. Noble adults pierced their earlobes, septums, and lower lips to insert heavy spools and plugs carved from polished green jade, obsidian, and mother of pearl. The teeth of high lords and ladies were inlaid with small round discs of jade and pyrite, fitted into drilled cavities by skilled palace dentists using tree resin adhesives. Daily attire for a high Maya lord was a dazzling display of wealth and natural materials. A noble wore a loincloth of finely woven white cotton, over which was tied an embroidered apron trimmed with jade beads and spotted feline fur. Over his shoulders hung a cape of woven feathers or a soft jaguar skin. On his head, he wore an immense, towering wooden frame covered in brilliant, iridescent green tail feathers of the resplendent quetzal bird, brought by trade from the high cloud forests of Guatemala. Noblewomen dressed in long, loose-fitting cotton tunics called huipiles, intricately woven with colorful threads and worn over layered skirts, accessorized with multi-strand jade necklaces, wrist cuffs, and anklets made of carved marine shells that chimed softly as they walked. Throughout the day, life inside the Central Acropolis followed a rhythm governed by the movement of the sun, the tropical weather, and the complex Maya calendar of 260 days. Long before sunrise, as howler monkeys roared in the rainforest canopy, palace servants woke to light incense burners and grind maize. By dawn, the king and his inner council performed private morning offerings in small family shrines, sprinkling copal incense onto burning coals, while scribes prepared ink palettes made of soot and mineral pigments to record the day's astronomical observations and administrative decrees on long folding books of deerskin or bark paper. By mid-morning, as the sun raised the temperature of the stone plazas, the court assembled in the main palace courtyards for formal audiences. Foreign envoys from distant cities like Kapan or Palenque arrived along the Sakbiab, bearing tribute gifts of jade beads, quetzal plumes, seashells, and cacao sacks. The king sat upon his jaguarskin-covered stone bench, surrounded by court attendants waving large feather fans to keep away tropical flies and circulate the humid air. On major festival days, the entire population gathered at the base of the colossal temples Ai and Ai in the Great Plaza to witness ceremonial dance performances and the ritual ball game, known as Pak Ta Pak. Played in narrow stone courts with sloped walls, two teams of padded noble athletes bounced a heavy solid rubber ball using only their hips, elbows, and knees. This high-stakes contest symbolized the eternal struggle between the sun and the dark forces of the underworld. As evening approached and afternoon rainstorms cleared the sky, the court gathered in open palace porticos to enjoy the cooling twilight air. Torches of pine resin were lit in iron brackets, illuminating painted murals of ancestral kings along the walls. Musicians played long wooden trumpets, turtle-shell drums, flutes made of clay and bird bone, and maraca rattles carved from dried gourds while royal dancers performed slow, graceful movements. Servants passed around tall cylinder cups of frothy cacao and platters of honeyed corn cakes. By nightfall, as the dark jungle echoed with the sounds of tree frogs, crickets, and prowling jaguars, the royal family retired to their inner stone chambers. The heavy cotton drapes were pulled tight across the doorways, leaving the ancient city of Tikal sleeping beneath a blazing canopy of stars. Yet by the turn of the 9th century, the golden age of Tikal was slipping away. Overpopulation, severe environmental deforestation, prolonged droughts, and relentless warfare between rival city-states strained the fragile tropical ecosystem to its breaking point. Within 100 years of King Yik'in Chan K'awiil's reign, the agricultural fields failed, the great reservoirs dried up, and the royal court dissolved. One by one, the scribes laid down their brushes, The stone carvers stopped carving stele, and the inhabitants abandoned the city. The towering pyramids and painted stone palaces of Tikal fell silent, slowly swallowed by the roots of giant ceiba trees and strangler figs for more than 10 centuries. Today, as modern visitors climb the steep stone stairways of Tikal through the jungle mist, the painted red stucco has weathered away, leaving bare gray limestone standing quietly against the green canopy. Yet when the morning sun breaks over the forest and the howler monkeys call out from the treetops, the ghost of that ancient world returns to life, recalling an extraordinary civilization of astronomers, architects, and divine kings who built one of the greatest stone cities of antiquity deep in the heart of the American region.